So we, the sort of royal human we, have done an incredible job at expanding our mechanical capabilities and expanding our cognitive or mental capacities through these machines that we've made. And I kind of like to think about these machines, or they could substitute the word technology, as a child that we gave birth to. You know, initially it's like, oh, isn't that cute? And then it's like, oh, this is having kind of troublesome. Why are you pushing back on me? And now technology is a full-fledged adult with its own life, which means that we're in this really cool position that we're evolving together. We influence it, it influences us. For the typical commission we have to do this, the research around, okay, well, you know, what are you going to build and why, is we're evolving really, really quickly, and we have all these new tools. And most people have no idea what people are doing because we, fortunately, are really inventive. Everybody has all these cool workarounds. So right now, people are evolving faster than anybody can really know. So if you're a big technology company, you have no idea, and hopefully you should never have any idea of how people are doing their work because they're figuring it out on the fly. So that's what they asked me to do, is come in and study it. So I'm looking at how people work with technology, what's working, what's not. And in the process, there's own personal experiences I'll talk about, sort of developed a awareness or sensitivity thing that I realize most people aren't even aware of. And within this, I found something where, as a species, frankly, we suck at it. And I'll come back to it. There's probably people in the audience saying, yeah, Gervais, you know, we includes me. I don't think so. So I'll come back to why I think it's yes, it's you, it's me, it's all of us. So more and more.
You might catch a cold.
So those were two friends of mine, recent experiences. And so on the phone side, it was this guy John. John was presenting about the same thing, about, well, he's a retail designer. How do we decide what are the mechanisms that we use in a store to connect people emotionally, connect the virtual shoppers to the physical experience, et cetera? And you know, so John's on a conference call, this horrible behavioral norm that exists where people beep in, you have this kind of flat tone, you're trying to present something, there's no dialogue. And then the other one is my friend and client, Chris. And you kind of listen to those two things. The first one, the audio got cut off a little bit, but you know, who did you more emotionally connect with? The guy that's laughing, right? And, all right. So what I've found is that there are this idea of emotional literacy. So there's technology, there's the abilities that technology creates for us to connect, but it's our responsibility to develop these literacies. So after looking at this, I decided to take a risk on this one thing. I asked to have a call with the senior decision makers at this huge corporation. Everybody warned me, oh my God, this is the most bureaucratic organization ever. They can't get anything done. So you're going to have a really hard time connecting with these folks. So I got the invite, so replied all, and I attached that picture of the chicken. And so, the call starts, and I just ran and said, hi, it's Gervais. And just sat there. So finally someone says, what was with the chicken? It's like, well, have you ever had beer can chicken? It's incredible. You put it on the grill, and the beer's boiling up under the chicken. It's the most incredible chicken you've ever had. This one person says, are those mangoes on the grill? Another person says, I'm a vegetarian, frankly. I find the chicken kind of disgusting, right? And so while that's going on, all these beeps are coming on, and the conversation continues. And then we ended up having excellent conference call, sort of conversational sex. And there's tons and tons of research that show that positive emotion, trust, and connection do a whole number of things. One is it helps with collaboration. If someone has a challenging feedback, you're going to react less negatively to it. It builds trust. emotional engagement has memory. So somehow we have to figure out a way to disrupt all these behavioral norms and make an emotional connection. All right. Okay, so what happened with me was, okay, as a designer, you tend to work on physical things, you do drawings, you're trying to get people to get emotionally engaged because you want them to do something cool and risky. And I was assigned to this project where it was a virtual team. The client is a huge global technology client. They were on a travel freeze because of the recession. Nobody could go anywhere. And so I was jerked from this thing of doing lots of face-to-face to being a member of this team where I wouldn't meet anybody. We'd do something over 100 projects all over the globe. And there are people on this team that I will never meet, that I am really good friends with. And it just opened up my eyes to the fact that there is the possibility of having emotional, deep friendships over these channels where you're not doing it physically or possibly never even seeing a photo or a video or anything of these folks. So I started going back and looking at our own data. For example, we do a couple different things. One of the things that we do is we observe what's going on, right? Because since you can't know what people are doing, you have to kind of record it, watch it, look at it. So, imagine that you're an observer and, you've got your smartphone and you go over here and say, okay, he's really kind of bored, all right, not doing anything, checking their BlackBerry. So you kind of record what's going on, right? And then for those same folks, you send out a survey and ask them, well, what did you think you did today? And then following, you get both the data streams, you look at it, there's usually about a 50% discontinuity between what people actually did and what they thought they did, and you get them together and talk about it, right? And in office space, this is a graph where there's no x-axis because it's true for so many different things, where is, say like 100% would be if all the employees that were supposed to be at their desk were at their desk, right? And this is true for all companies. It doesn't matter if a product company, technology company, energy company, whatever it is, it's all about the same. This is the signature of contemporary work, where people aren't there. And we typically, we present the data, and no one ever believes it. And they're like, well, where are they? And what's interesting about this situation is that, well, let's say you're, what's happening with the way, sort of the global economy, the global community, is that businesses are getting more, they're servicing markets that are broader and broader and broader. So business is getting more geographically distributed. And that they need employees with really good talents, and not all employees are able to sort of relocate, or it's even appropriate to relocate. So the staff ends up being pretty distributed. As you access these different markets, it means that you're working across different time zones. So you talk to these employees, and everybody has this common experience where they might have a really early morning conference call with, say, for me on the West Coast, with someone on the East Coast or Europe, and it's at 6 in the morning, and you're not going to like get up, get dressed. You just kind of do it in your pajamas or your underwear or whatever at home, and then you might say, oh, God, since I had to go up early, I'm going to go to the gym. And you go to the gym around 9 o'clock. You might roll into work around 10, bunch of meetings, and then you know that, oh, you got to do a call with India, or you got to talk to somebody later about something, and someone's supposed to get something done. You got to check in on them, or you're responsible for producing something. So you're going to have an evening call, too. And what happens is it mixes up your whole life, and you're struggling to have a work-life balance. You're going to blend it all together. So all these things contribute to the fact that all of our collaborators and partners are increasingly virtual. So I said, all right, let's study this. So this is a company, it's about 22 locations, US and India, and we said, let's focus on really tiny meetings, meetings of 3 people. And what we can observe is we can observe if a conference call, the conference call thing is on, or is a video conference. We can't tell if people are emailing, if they're involving a virtual participant. Just the obvious stuff. And we thought, oh, it'd be interesting, probably 25% of the time. 85% of the time in a small meeting, there was a virtual participant. It blew us away. We're like, oh, that's got to be wrong. So we said, all right, we got another commission. It was for a way bigger company. And so we looked at okay, let's look at all times that we can see people are interacting, whether they're talking by the coffee pot, whether they're at their desk, whether they're in a big meeting. What's the whole average? And the whole average was shocking again, 77%. 70% of the time that people were interacting, that we could observe that they were interacting, it involved a virtual participant. I think about my own life. You know, they say a third, a third, a third. You can see there's beer in the second one. There's beer's a common theme here. Is that, okay, so I'm socializing in those first 2/3, but the number of interactions I have at work is probably the biggest part. So I know that I'm way more interactions at work in half of my life, and 77% of those involve virtual participants. Oh my God, I have way more virtual people in my life than physical people in my life. All right, I've been enjoying talking about these things too much. All right, so global machines, personal machines, and emotion, social biology is that what's happening is our devices, our technologies are giving us the opportunity to connect to more and more and more people. And there's this gap between our emotions, which are in the primal part of our brain, and the relationships that our technologies are exposing us to. The way we're going to bridge that gap is through these emotional literacies. And here's some strategies, some things to watch out for. Video is not the killer app on this. Okay, everybody thinks, oh, video will save the day. And I think it's because it's the thing that most approximates our sort of present relationships. Video has all sorts of problems to it. One is that if you're working across time zones, it can be hugely inconsiderate. In cultures that are highly virtual, if they say, well, let's do a video call, they automatically think, why? Why do we need a video call? What went wrong? Because video you're exposing more and more of your traditional sort of features, and you just think if someone wants a video call, they want to watch your face. Are you lying, right? So video in many cultures is scary. It's like it's a bad sign. Emoticons are, there's a literacy that needs to, growing literacy that needs to happen with emoticons. My favorite emoticons come from my Japanese colleagues. The problem with emoticons is that you kind of have to learn what they are before you really emotionally connect with them. So here's another literacy that we need. Corporate speak. Oh my God, this is something we have to cull. This is one of these behavioral norms that we have to cull. There's this book by Christian about the most human, and they found that chatbots can approximate small talk way better. If you get into a conversation with a chatbot and it's small talk, you can't distinguish the chatbot from a human. Corporate speak, I'm sure the computers could just win every single time. This is meaningless language. It's one of those behavioral norms that eliminates all emotional communication, should be culled from our business lives. We're finding that employees are they're wanting us to embed emotional content in space. You know, for the people that lead these lives, you know, if that wall were just a wall with paint on it or something, it just doesn't do it for them. They need to have these emotional anchors. So they hired a street artist to come in and you know, that's in their neighborhood and kind of paint the wall. And then it's like, cool, you know, I know where I am, so it's me, I'm here. It reminds me of that. The beer can chicken thing is that they say smell has one of the deepest sort of connections to memory, and that there's ways to involve things in our conversations that sort of stand in or sort of avatars for other senses. And so I encourage, you know, all of us to begin to experiment with the way to incorporate these different avatars. That many of you in the audience have experienced the pleasure of a 14-person, 2-hour-long conference call. And hopefully, if you ever are asked, you will stop them dead in their tracks and say, this isn't going to work. It's impossible to have a conversation this way. How about 3 or 4 of us agree to discuss the topic, and then people can kind of give feedback later. We need to create sort of humanly scaled conversational constructs in these things so that there can be a dialogue. Another thing that we need to start doing is I'm really encouraged by the whole tablet touchscreen thing, because what it means is that it gives us the opportunity to bring tactile and movement, which is another sort of emotional avatar. And you know, the Prezi, what I'm using, you know, is a new presentation technique that involves motion, and I think it does have more emotional content in it too. So I believe that we're at a place where if we're really going to connect as a global species, we're going to build trust across cultures, that we need to work really hard. We're being complacent. We need to break out of our comfort zone, and we need to start experimenting with ways to emotionally connect. And that means that the we part where I said, okay, I think it's you and it's me, is that to emotionally connect, you can't do it alone. You've got to have other people buy into the emotional connection. In order to have this sort of network, this society sort of acceptance of these emotional communications, we have to push the envelope. We have to develop these literacies. So my ask of you all is help us evolve. Challenge those behavioral norms. Start experimenting and playing with emotional connection over these channels. Thank you very much.